everyone, I'm Melissa McAllister, and you're listening to The Melissa Made Show. Now, for decades, I've dedicated myself to helping women break the cycle of dieting, navigate through all the fads, and change their lives through my nutrition coaching. Now, each week, I'm going to talk about everything from deep nutrition, mindset, self-care, the ideal workout routine, tips on how and why to implement intermittent fasting in your life, my favorite recipes that are not only crowd pleasers, but they're actually healthy for you, and so much more. Now, with small and consistent changes, you can defy aging while living a happier, healthier, and more heart-filled life. I'm so excited to show you it's possible with the right strategies that are so simple to adopt. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Melissa Made Show. So if you're watching the YouTube video, you can probably just see in my face, I'm controlling myself right now. I've mentioned this before, but when I first started this podcast, I had the opportunity with my marketing team. They said, please just give us a dream team list. And it was a very short list, but this guest was at the very tippy top of that list. And we had a couple of opportunities to get together, but we had to cancel, and it's finally happening. And I'm actually looking at her face right now, and I'm so excited. Her name is Dr. Mindy Pelz, and she is so instrumental in my love of intermittent fasting. I mean, I just told her that I did intermittent fasting for, it's over 20 something years, but never really understood what it was. And she was one of the very first accounts. I mean, Dr. Mindy, I found you on YouTube when you were still tiny.
Was it when I didn't have a microphone and everybody is telling me I was screaming at them? Yeah.
Actually,
I remember those days.
But I would just sit there and listen, and the way that you explain things is so digestible. Ironically, it's so digestible, and I just would binge watch and watch, and then I would take what I learned and I would regurgitate it, and it would help me help other people. So just been instrumental. But Dr. Mindy Pelz, she's got 4 books, and you got 3 books, and you got the 4th one coming out, right?
Yep. 4th one's coming.
I've already pre-ordered it. You guys can go to fastlikeagirl.com, and this is going to be the main topic for us today, is because I am constantly asked all the time about, number one, about, I hear it's not good for women to fast. And number 2, I have in my hand the Menopause Reset, which, Dr. Mindy, I swear to you, I have paid for some of your mortgage with this book. I have this book.
Thank you.
To so many people. We actually did a whole Facebook group on this book because the information is so good, so stinking good. So I recommend if you're one of the few that don't have the Menopause Reset, that is an exceptional book. And then you've got to pre-order Fast Like a Girl. Go to fastlikeagirl.com. But we're just going to hop into it. Dr. Pelz, Dr. Mindy, I don't know what you want to be called.
Dr. Mindy's fine. Mindy's fine. You call me anything.
My opinion. I would just love for you to just go ahead and jump in and help my followers understand that, of course, there are not necessarily rules, but there are some variances. But by all means, women can fast.
Yes. You want me to start there? Women can fast. End of story. Women can fast. In fact, here's what I'm going to say, because I think this was like my aha moment with fasting. And that's that I saw we needed to do it different. I experienced it for my own self. But then I saw all the people on my YouTube channel that were talking about, how women were losing their hair, they were gaining weight, they were losing their periods while they were fasting. And so I had come up with this whole formula to time fasting to the different hormones. And one day I was at a conference and I was on a panel with like 4 other men, Thomas Daylauer, if you're not familiar with him, and Ben Azadi and Dr. Daniel Pompa. Like, these were like fasting experts, and they were all pontificating about how you needed to cycle fasting so that you could mimic, like what our caveman ancestors did. And as these 3 men were like debating the different ways that men should vary their fast, I had this aha moment of like, oh my God, we are so lucky as women because A, we have to vary our fast according to our cycle. And B, aren't we lucky that we have a cycle to follow to be able to vary it? Right. So it was like a flip on its head. All of a sudden I realized I went from this place of like, this isn't like something that we have to do, that women have to do as they're fasting. It's something we get to do because we have these incredible superpowers called estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, and they work in our advantage. And when we fast like a girl and we know how to time it, it's amazing how we can bring hormonal balance back. So that's my long-winded answer to say, yes, women, we have to fast differently, but we get to fast differently because we have these incredible sex hormones that serve us so well.
Okay. So I love that. And, when people come to me and say, I'm dealing with thyroid issues, or I'm dealing with, gosh, it could be a whole host of things, adrenal fatigue, something like that. Should I fast? And usually my answer is, and I would love your input on this, is let's get the thyroid under control, or let's try to get the adrenal fatigue a little bit, not so fatigued, before you add fasting into that. How do you help your patients with incorporating fasting, if you do, when their body is already pretty stressed because of maybe an autoimmune disorder or something?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And I think it's a really important one. So thank you for bringing it up. What we have to remember is that what fasting is very analogous to working out or to sleep. Like it is a behavior that we do that our bodies really respond well to. And the reason that they respond so well is because it triggers, very much like working out, it triggers something called a hormetic stress. And this is where when you put the body in a little bit of discomfort, it actually adapts favorably. So working out is a perfect example. You hire a trainer. If every time you showed up to that trainer, it was an easy workout, you'd probably give up after a while. You'd be like, no, like that doesn't really work for me. But that's because they didn't push you or stress you. And that's what fasting's doing, is it's creating this nice little bit of positive stress on your bodies, forcing your body to heal. When it comes to adrenal fatigue, we're not just dealing with the adrenals, we're dealing with the whole HPA axis. So we're dealing with the brain and the adrenals. So if you are already flatlined, you're not making enough cortisol, then you've got to wake that system up and just a little bit. And so what I do with those people who have adrenal fatigue is we just slowly push back their fasting window. We go maybe push it back a half hour, their breakfast, you can push your breakfast back a half hour, and then wait, do that for a couple of days, and then you can push it back another half hour. You just have to slowly tiptoe into your fasting and eating cycles, but it will help adrenal fatigue. I've seen it over and over again. An adrenal fatigue person doesn't just dive into a 3-day water fast. Right. They got to tiptoe in, and by just slowly compressing that eating window and elongating the fasting one.
Yeah. And social media has been such a powerful tool, good and bad, when it comes to information being put out there. And I do see, and, we'll be given, which I'm sure you are tenfold, maybe somebody that is sharing how intermittent fasting is bad for you for this reason, or it is for this reason. And my very simplistic comparison is, your great grandmother and your great great grandmother probably fasted, and you're here today. Yes. So I can't imagine why all of a sudden, it's being told that it's not good for us. Do you have any explanation why some people have this reason? I'll use that way. Have this reason for not believing that fasting can be beneficial to people.
Yeah. Okay. Such a great question, because let me tell you that for starters, we have to understand when we start a health trend that is free and, is going to get people off medications and is going to do what diets weren't able to do, you're going to have both the food industry and big pharma not really excited about that. Right. So, and those two industries drive our media. So this is not a conspiracy theory, approach. This is fact. I mean, you really, the big pharma plays a big part in advertising dollars that we get, how we get our information. So whenever a trend like this gets really hot, we have to remember that when we get a lot of negative press, it could be because there's an industry that's suffering financially because of it. So I've been doing fasting, teaching it on YouTube for about 8 years now. And I've watched this is how I came up with Fast Like a Girl, was about 2 years ago. I started to see that there was all this media coming out that women shouldn't fast, women shouldn't fast, women shouldn't fast. And I 1000% disagree with that. So I think when we look at the naysayers, the first thing we have to do is go in and ask ourselves, is there a financial incentive for them to be telling us not to do this activity? Because all you've got to do is go to my YouTube and you can see the millions of comments of people getting off medication and now they're not eating 3 meals a day, they're eating 1 meal a day, shortening their food bill. Those industries are not liking that. So that would be the first thing I would say. The second thing is that one of my pleas is to get us to stop looking at this as a diet trend. Fasting is not a diet trend. It is not going anywhere. Last year during the holidays, I was interviewed by a bunch of news stations and they're like, why are we still talking about this? I'm like, because it's working for so many people, because it's not a diet trend.
Yeah.
And then the last thing, if you're still not completely convinced, I wrote about this in Fast Like a Girl. There is a hypothesis called the thrifty gene hypothesis. And they believe that there was a gene that we had back in the caveman days that allowed our ancestors to go long periods without food. And the cave people that had this gene were the ones that survived and reproduced. And today we have this gene inside of us. The people that didn't have this gene didn't survive. So that gene wasn't able to continue on in the human species. So there is a large number of people that are looking at the benefits of fasting are because it is in alignment with our genetic profile, that we have this gene inside us right now. And much of the belief around type 2 diabetes and the prevalence of type 2 diabetes is because people are going against their genetic expression by eating all day.
Right. I was this morning, I walk every single morning and I listen to YouTube videos. You're always up there. And in this last week, I've been listening a lot to Neil Huberman, and he's got the one really long 2-hour one talking about the benefits of fasting and how incredible it is. And all the studies in both mice and humans are showing just how ridiculously good it is for you. And I really appreciate hearing that. And the thing that I think is the most important for people to understand is, and tell me if you disagree, fasting is wonderful for so many things, and weight loss. It's not, I never approach fasting with the hopes that your tunnel vision, and the reason that you're doing this fasting, whatever protocol that you choose, is because you want to lose weight. Because if you concentrate on all the other things that it does for you, it's going to be a wonderful byproduct of just being an intermittent faster, as opposed to being like, I want to be a skinny person and I'm going to use intermittent fasting as a tool to get there. So what are your thoughts on, all the benefits of fasting and weight loss being one of them?
Yeah. So I think the best way to answer that is let's start by looking at what causes the body to hold on to weight and what builds chronic disease. And it really comes back to blood sugar management. So when we're eating all day, we're spiking our blood sugar, and it depends what we eat. Let's say we have a bowl of oatmeal. Everybody loves oatmeal for breakfast. And all of a sudden your blood sugar spikes. And then about 2 hours later, it's going to crash and it's going to go down. And as high as your blood sugar spiked is as low as it's going to go. So a couple hours after you eat, you're hungry again. And so you innately reach, it depending on how low your blood sugar goes, you innately reach for something sweet at 10 o'clock in the morning, because you're trying to bring your blood sugar back up. You eat something sweet, 2 hours later, you're hungry again. So this up and down of your blood sugar is causing your body to release more insulin. It's gumming up your red blood cells. So now wherever your red blood cells are going to, they're not delivering as much oxygen. And over time, the body is going to have to figure out what to do with all this extra sugar, what to do with the hormones it can't get into the cells, what to do with toxins. So over time, it starts to store it as fat. So the best way to look at fasting is it's after excess. And we have been eating all day without a break, never tapping into ketones, which is 50% of our brain, our brain fuel, and our mitochondrial fuel is ketones, but nobody's getting that because we get up in the morning, we eat every couple of hours, we eat. We've been eating 6 meals a day, thinking it's going to speed up our metabolism. So when people come to fasting, I don't really care what door you come into fasting. If you want to come in for mental clarity, amazing. If you want to come in to reverse an autoimmune condition, incredible. You want to bring diabetes, get off your diabetes, your insulin. I've seen that happen over and over and over again. If you want to lose weight, there's so many doors in symptom-wise to fasting. Yeah. It's really what you choose to do. But what I want people to know is you're putting your body back into its natural state of healing. So this is why you're seeing people who are like, oh my God, I lost 30 pounds and I can finally think straight again.
Yeah.
Because this is an incredible tool of self-repair.
Right.
And how, if weight loss is what's going to bring it to the world, then amazing. But I want people to understand that there's so much more than weight loss to this tool.
Yeah. And you just, I believe a couple of days ago on your Instagram account, you talked about autophagy and ways to, and I know you're really big into biohacking, which I was in front of my red light therapy panels when I was listening to you on YouTube and you talking about being a great biohack. And I was like, hey, it's perfect timing.
It's an even better biohack if you're listening to it. You're listening to somebody tell you it's a biohack and you're in the middle of the biohack. Like, sheesh, that's amazing.
Yeah, that made me giggle. But you were talking about autophagy and ways to, obviously fasting is a very powerful way to get the body into that state of autophagy, but ways to kind of help speed up that process or to, really get into it really hardcore. If you don't mind sharing some of those things that you had posted about how to get into it, because most of my followers are fasters. So I think we've done a good job of convincing those that are on the fence about it. Now I would love to kind of just talk about fasting and just kind of literally pat people on the back for incorporating it into their lifestyle by showing them kind of all the great things that it does.
All it does. Yeah. It's like a party trick. I feel like you could put a bunch of people in the room and I'd be like, and it does this and this and this and this. So here's the way I like to look at it is that every hour you go beyond 8 hours. So let's start with that 8 hours is usually about where the blood sugar is coming down from the last meal and you're switching over into this fat burning place. So after 8 hours, you start to make that switch. And once you're over in the fat burner place, usually that takes this is around 12, 13 hours. That's where the miracles start to happen. So it looks like this. Intermittent fasting is known as about 13 to 15 hours without food. And this is where we can see testosterone start to rise up. We see growth hormone kick in. We start to see glucose and insulin coming down. We can see inflammation coming down in that time period. Your body, for many women specifically, your body will go and find the fat that it stored years ago, and it'll start to burn that for energy because it's like, I don't have any fuel coming in, but I remember that I stored some fuel a long time ago. So let me go burn some fat for that fuel, which is brilliant, right? So then all of that starts at 13 to 15 hours. At 17 hours, your intelligent body goes, okay, still no food. We better make sure these cells are really more efficient and they can handle the, desert of food that's about to come upon us. We need to make sure that everybody's stronger. So that's autophagy. It stimulates autophagy. And what autophagy is the cells clean their act up. They make the cellular parts stronger. And if the cell is really bad, it'll actually kill the cell and get rid of it, which is great if it's like a cancer cell or a cell that is not bringing in hormones or a cell that isn't producing enough energy from the mitochondria. If it's an old aging cell, let's get it out. And that can happen at 17 hours. At 24 hours, the gut, all the intestinal stem cells in the gut start to kick in, and old bacteria die and new bacteria start to grow, and the intestinal lining starts to repair from all these stem cells. 36 hours of fasting. Now your body's had enough time to be like, yeah, still no food, still not coming, amp up fat burning. So at 36 hours, you get a lot more fat burning because the body is now trying to make more ketones. At 48 hours, it resets your whole dopamine system. So it gives you new dopamine receptor sites, because what your body's trying to do is make you happy and alert so you can go find food. And it upregulates vitamins and minerals that spin off of the Krebs cycle that slow aging down. Because after 2 days of no food, your body's got to get itself incredibly primed in a high performance state so it can go find food. And then at 72 hours, your whole immune system reboots itself. And so that's the typical 3-day water fast. So all of that happens in 3 days without a medication, without a supplement, without nothing. That's you. Your body's doing that. So if we have a lot of fasting fans that are like, maybe I should try some of these longer fasts. Yes. I mean, this was one of the things in Fast Like a Girl that I really went to bat for when Hay House offered or bought the book. I was like, we have to put these 6 fasts in, because it's in the longer fasts that we're seeing even more miracles.
Yes. Our body is fascinating. And I think we've just kind of lost touch with how resilient it is and how smart it is. And, what we do today, especially gene wise, we haven't been able to catch up with what we do today versus the way that it was built to be strong and to, keep generations going and going. And I love that definition of each. So when it comes to a 3-day fast, or even a 2-day fast, even a 24-hour fast, do you, generally speaking, and I know it's very hard to speak to a large audience, but generally speaking, how do you tell people to do a 24, 48, or 36? How often, once they've gotten comfortable with the kind of the daily fasting, to, implement that kind of a thing?
Yeah, it's a great question. So here's the way I look at this, is that I consider anything 24 hours or less is a shorter fast. Anything over 24 hours is a longer fast. That's the way I look at it. And the longer fasts are really there for more therapeutic healing. So you have to always ask yourself, what am I trying to do? If I'm just trying to stay healthy and slow the aging process down and make sure I'm mentally clear and have a bunch of ketones to keep me feeling great, going somewhere between 13 to 17 hours on a daily basis is going to be really good, with the exception for women who are cycling the week before your period. Definitely don't want to be going into those longer fasts. Outside of that, I love the 24-hour fast is amazing for repairing the gut. So once a week, can you throw a 24-hour fast at yourself so that you get some gut repair? We now know that we are 10 times more microbial cells than we are human cells. Crazy. And yet our healthcare system's been all focused on human cells. And so when we throw a 24-hour fast at once a week, we start to create a better environment for those microbes. So I like that once a week. People who are really stuck with their weight, I mean, I've seen everything from weekly 36-hour fast to monthly to quarterly, but I like that to make sure that you unstick your weight. If you're suffering with depression or anxiety, you got to try a 48-hour fast. What we see in our community is that often all it takes is one 48-hour fast, and you reset the dopamine pathways, and now they start to experience more joy. Yeah. And then I think once or twice a year, a 72-hour fast to make sure that you're sloughing off any cancer cells, you're keeping your immune system primed, is really, really great. So think of these like tools. Like sometimes you need a hammer, Sometimes you need a wrench. Sometimes you need a screwdriver.
Yeah.
So even though they're all in your toolbox that sits in your garage, it doesn't mean that you pull them out all the time, every time.
Yeah, I love that. I want to go back really fast because you mentioned your community, which is the Reset Academy. Do you want to share a little bit about that community? Because I think it's pretty great. All right, I have a question for you. Do you ever feel tightness in your tummy sitting in rush hour traffic, or you get sick to your stomach right before a big presentation? I've been there. That's because your gut, not your brain, is responsible for your stress response. So to manage stress and to feel calm and in control, you have to give your gut what it needs to thrive. Now, personally, I trust Just Thrive Probiotic because it's recommended by some of the biggest names in the health industry. And I've been taking it for years. It's a game changer in helping you sidestep gas, bloat, and constipation. And it's even been shown to help flip the switch on stress so you can feel confident and in control. And for next level stress management, get this. I have been pairing the probiotic with Just Thrive's breakthrough new product called Just Calm. I love the word. Just Calm's proprietary ingredients have been clinically proven to do the almost imaginable. It reduces perceived stress. It improves sleep quality and energy, and even encourages better focus and flow. Now, Just Thrive Probiotic and Just Calm make the perfect 1-2 punch. Can you see me doing the 1-2 punch to beat stress before it beats you? I really want you to find and listen to the episode that I did with Tina Anderson, who is the creator and CEO of Just Thrive, and listen to this podcast. It is amazing where she goes into detail, and you're going to be able to learn all about this groundbreaking company that's changing the game in the supplement industry. There's no fake marketing, no claims, just real scientifically proven results, which mean everything to me. And I know it does to you too. So if you're looking for the best in gut health and mood support, choose the clinically proven award-winning power of Just Thrive. And guess what? You can save 15% off site-wide when you go to justthrivehealth.com and use the code MelissaMade.
Yeah, we have. So one thing I learned from teaching this on YouTube, and especially for women, is there's so much nuance. There's so much detail, and trying to figure out how to customize this for you. If it gets daunting, that's why we created our Reset Academy. It's a low-cost membership group where you can come in every other month. We do 15-day fasting experiences together. Every Saturday, we work out together, and I, either myself or my health coach, we lead what I call a coffee chat where we talk about mindset and changing the paradigm of health for women. And I have a bunch of courses in there. So it's a community, and we've got people helping our community figure out the right fasting variation for them, because that's the ultimate goal, is to learn how to go in and out of these different length fasts. And when do you fast and when do you not fast? Think of it as an art. There's an art to all of it. And some people will be able to grab that art right off the bat from social media, and some need a little more help with it. And that's why we created our academy.
Yeah, I love it. And so a little backstory. I am a victim of Agent Orange, and my father served in Vietnam, was exposed to Agent Orange. And as we know, toxins sit in your fat cells. And so all of that toxin sat in my dad's fat cells. And my mom and my dad had my sister, perfectly normal. And then he decided he wanted to become a helicopter pilot in the Army. And so he had to go on a crash diet and lose a bunch of weight really fast. And all of that Agent Orange that was stored in his cells released into his bloodstream. I was conceived, and I'm a victim of Agent Orange, and I have birth defects because of that. But the point of telling you that is because I know you're really big into detox. And for me, when I hear somebody say, that's what a liver's for, you don't need to do detoxes, you have a liver. And I want to raise my hand and say, can I tell you my story? My dad really needed to do a detox because I wouldn't be with my issues today had somebody had told my dad to do some sort of a detox, because he was exposed to toxins, which we are exposed to on a daily basis in our foods and in the environment. So will you share a little bit about your views and ways that you help people with the detoxification system beyond just trusting their liver to do the job for them?
Yeah, it's another great question. And I think the liver is definitely the hardest working organ in the body, outside probably of the brain. And you need a good functioning liver to be able to make ketones. So the first thing to understand is when you're fasting, if you're not getting into ketosis, most likely you have a sluggish liver. So what is slowing that liver down is usually one of two things: too much sugar or too many carbs and toxins. So your story, when I hear you talk about that, I'm like, yeah, that, if all that Agent Orange, your liver has been having to detoxify. And so when you come to fasting to make ketones in the beginning, it can be a little, I don't know if it was this way for you, but making ketones can be a little bit sluggish and it can take a little time. But if you keep fasting, eventually the liver starts to repair itself, just like how we started this off with adrenal, talking about the adrenal piece of this. So that's the first thing I'll say, is that you have to have a good functioning liver. And if you're struggling to get into ketosis, a lot of times it's because of a toxicity issue. Just hang in there, hang in there. So the second thing that I would say is that what we know about toxins is they live in the cells, and that many of these synthetic materials like heavy metals, Agent Orange, glyphosate, there's a lot of products that we're exposed to that our human body just doesn't know how to get rid of. Okay. So what it does is it stores it as fat. It puts it in our fat tissue. So now when you come to fasting, you're burning that fat tissue, your body's having to get rid of all that. So you need to make sure you're having daily bowel movements. You need to, again, make sure that liver is working well, but also know as the body gets rid of these toxins and you're fasting, you might not feel good. And this is the one thing that I would say is so challenging for people, is they're like, I got a rash, or I have brain fog, or, all of a sudden I started gaining weight. And all of that is signs that your body's doing the exact right thing. It's trying to get rid of these toxins. It's just that those pathways weren't open. So the continuing conversation to your Agent Orange issue is, fasting will help you get rid of those toxins, but make sure your pathways are open. Make sure your liver is healthy. Make sure you're having bowel movements. Make sure you're sleeping so that your brain can detoxify at night. And if those things aren't happening, as you know from following my channel, that we have a lot of hacks that you can use to try to come in and support that. But fasting is one of the best detoxes I know.
Yeah, agreed. And you touched on really fast, which made me have a question for you that I ask pretty much anybody that I interview. Again, this is speaking generalities, but what is when you're working with patients, sometimes it's important what you eat, and obviously it's very important what you don't eat. But when it comes to what do you eat, do you have general guidelines that you give people on foods that you think are more important than other foods to only have special occasions, or foods that you should have every single day? What are your thoughts on just the human diet in general?
Yeah. Well, okay. So the first thing I want to say is, if you're like, I'm not changing my food, I don't want to give you an excuse for not changing your food, because I think we should all be eating healthy. Our food that's in our supermarkets right now is fake food, which is really sad and full of chemicals. But the research shows that if you let's just take somebody who is eating McDonald's all day. If you, instead of having them eat it all day long, could they just eat McDonald's in a 6-hour eating window, leaving 18 hours for fasting? When they do that, what they do is they become metabolically immune from the damage that food creates in the body. It's crazy. This is when I got that statistic, I was like, oh my God, this is how we'll change the people's health, despite the fact that the food industry is really pouring more and more fake ingredients in there. Yep. So fasting first, food change. I always say, change when you eat first, and then let's change what you eat.
I love that.
So now, what should you eat? I think that the easiest next step is get off the processed foods. If it's man-made, I don't care if it's gluten-free, organic, like just look at your meal and say, did nature provide this for me? Is it in its most authentic version of itself? So like a potato is going to be better than potato chips or fries. So bake yourself a potato. Now, I would say like keto people would be like, no, there's too high on the glycemic index. I'm saying let's start by eating real food first before we start tricking out macros and counting calories. Like just freaking eat real food and combine it to fasting, and your life will change before you even count anything.
Yeah.
After you've done that, if you want to go in and count, macros and be more keto, great. I have a food style I call hormone feasting. In the new book, those two food styles, ketobiotic and hormone feasting, will be timed to a woman's hormones. So then you can start to get a little more advanced with it. But we've overcomplicated diets.
Amen.
Like
Amen.
It's literally as simple as eat real food and pair that to fasting windows, and done. Like chronic disease is done if everybody did that.
Did you imagine? So for the listeners who won't ask questions, just the listeners, what do you call kind of your shortest time frame for actually fasting? I mean, are you a 12-hour that you believe that 12-hour fasting is still fasting, or does it need to be a little bit higher?
It's so funny because when I wrote Fast Like a Girl, me and the editor went back and forth on what officially is a fasted state. Yeah. So I spent a lot of time like researching it and writing it. And I have to say that, again, after 8 hours, usually at about 8 hours, your body will switch over to the fat burning energy system. But that doesn't mean you get all the wonders of fasting at 8 hours. It takes it's about at that 8 hour mark that the body goes, oh, okay, wait, blood sugar's going down. We better go into our alternate fuel source. And usually about 12 to 13 hours, it's efficiently over into that fuel source. And your body is now making ketones. It's burning fat, usually about 12 to 13 hours. Now, the reason I say usually is what we've seen is a lot of people get to 13 hours and they're like, no, I'm starving. I'm going to kill somebody. I want to pass out. And that's just because you haven't trained yourself. That would be like me, running 12 miles today. That would be a lot for my body on this day. But if you told me to run 12 miles in a month from now, I could train myself up to do that. So that's why we have to start to understand that it's the switch. We call it a metabolic switch. Once we get over to fat burning, that can happen in as little as 12 hours. And as long as you keep that blood sugar stable or going down, you will stay in that fasted state until you raise blood sugar by eating again.
Love that. So speaking of ketones, your personal opinion when it comes to supplementation, do you use or do you recommend exogenous ketones, or do you believe that we should just stick with our body making our own?
It's the $1 million fasting question. So I'm such a fan of the body doing the right thing at the right time and supporting the body in its own healing journey, that I don't like exogenous ketones for the typical person. I'll tell you exactly where I do like it. But I feel like if we start throwing exogenous ketones at our fasts, that you're manipulating the system a bit. And then now the body doesn't know how to do it on its own. So it's very much like, have you ever heard of somebody who goes on thyroid medication and they're like, you're on it now, your body's going to stop making as many hormones, so you're going to need to stay on it forever. Yeah. No. Okay. So once you do that with exogenous ketones, once you start to get into a daily habit of it, now your body doesn't know how to get into ketosis on its own. So that would be the first thing I'd say. Second thing is, now there are times that you want to lean into it. So for example, I should have done it before I hopped on with you, but a lot of times I'll do it before a podcast interview. I'll be like, I'm about 15 hours in. I know I'm already making ketones. Let me just see if I can throw a little more at it and a couple of ketones, and will that amp up my brain power? And it works really, really well. We've also given ketones to kids who are like autistic or have learning disabilities, but we always do it in a fasted state. We've done it with Alzheimer's patients. We've done it with people who are trying to fast a little longer, but their hunger is kicking in. So there's a lot of places to use it. But the thing you never want to do is you never want to eat a meal and then take exogenous ketones, because you're going against your biology. The ketones are not meant to be present when blood sugar is high.
Yeah. I assume that you've done some, or you obviously heard of being an expert, Dr. Longo, and probably 6 years ago, they sent me a Prolon, FMD, and I did that. And then I did it for a friend of mine that is battling cancer. I did it alongside with her. I'm just curious your opinion on that. I will give you mine. I find the Prolon, and I tell anybody that asks me this fasting mimicking diet way harder than a 5-day fast, because it makes me hungry. That little tiny bit of food makes me more hungry than an actual 5-day fast, because when I've done several 5-day fasts, and you get to that point that on that 5-day, I'm like, I need to eat. I mean, I'm a very lean individual, and I'm like, I need to eat. I don't feel like eating. I'm not hungry. I feel fantastic, but I need to eat, because, you start really losing weight after that 5 days. So I'm just curious your opinion on those, because, my following has seen me do both. And I've always been honest that I prefer a 5-day water fast, but I'd love your opinion.
Yeah, no, I 1,000% agree with you that I think Prolon, what they did with Prolon is actually the thought behind it was really smart. And the idea was that when Walter Longo came out with his 3-day water fast research showing that after 3 days of no food at all, you would reboot your whole immune system, old white blood cells would be sloughed away and new white blood cells would form, that everybody was like, this is amazing. We're all going to go on 3-day water fast. But Walter, what he did is he followed that up and basically said that he didn't think people would do 3-day water fast. So he said, what's the most minimal amount of food we can get away with and still make stem cells? That second bit of research was done on people with type 1 and type 2 diabetes. And what he found is if 5 days out of a month, he put people into calorie and protein restriction. It's not glucose restriction, as you probably noticed. There are plenty of carbs. It's not carb restriction. It's almost too many carbs. But it's calorie and protein restriction that you can get the same effect where you get stem cells. And he did it 5 days a month, 3 months in a row, and he saw that pancreatic stem cells regrew. That's amazing. Yeah. Okay, so everybody was like, well, what combination of food did you put together? And that's where Prolon came about. Now, I agree with you. I've done Prolon twice now, and I'm starving. Like, I'm way better. Just give me water and tell me you're not eating for 5 days. I can succeed at that because I'll start making ketones quicker. And then your mind is it's a non-negotiable. Your mind's like, nope, we're not eating. We're done. So I feel like as attractive as Prolon sounds, it's really easier to do a water fast. But if you want a turnkey system that you can tap into, give it a try and see what you think. I just have found most people find water fasting cheaper. And
yes, for sure. And it's the same thing with the ketones when you were talking about that, and you were saying how it makes your body not, want to produce its own ketones. It also takes fasting and kind of starts to make it, a way that you can monetize. So you will hear, people talking about, and I'm sure there are perfect scenarios for the exogenous ketones, but generally speaking, just like you said, and I was hoping you would, your body is very capable of making those yourself. And there's no need for them unless there's extenuating circumstances for that kind of a thing. And, Prolon has, I don't know, I think his work is fascinating to me. Of course, I'm a girl who I love my protein and I love my fat, and I do love healthy carbs. But the pullback on the protein is always a little bit hard for me. Spent 45 minutes. This is my last question for you, Dr. Mindy. I'm almost, probably when this comes out, I'll almost be 49 years old. And I have been fasting for over 25 years. And tell me, because it's my turn to ask you a personal question. Tell me,
go for it.
if I am an anomaly, because I have, I've been fasting since college. When I was a group exercise instructor, I do fasted workouts. I have for over 20 years. Very lean, like I said, have really good muscle tone, still am building muscle in my late 40s. I've always had sorry, gentlemen, I've always had very normal periods, very short. I don't even know they're coming. I don't have any kind of symptoms or anything, except I might get a little hungry. And almost 49. And I think I might be starting perimenopause. I'm not sure yet, because it's that iffy, because everything's still pretty normal. In your expert opinion, because my sister and my mother are not this way, can you attribute the fact that I've been as an adult, I have been a lifetime faster, to having such regular female, ebbs and flows when it comes to my period, and now being, near 50 and still going strong? I mean, knock on wood, I don't want to get pregnant, but I probably could. I could probably have a healthy pregnancy at this age, because everything seems to be so on board and so healthy. And I just wanted your opinion, from all the things that you've seen, if I can attribute that to being such an avid and devout faster.
Yeah, yes. Okay. So there's so much to unpack in that statement. So the first thing I want to say is that after 40, and this is for everybody, around 40, our ovaries start to go into retirement. And what that means is for about 10 to 15 years, estrogen and progesterone are going to make a slow decline. Testosterone doesn't have to decline. Testosterone declines when we are exposed to a lot of phthalates, or have a lot of stress, or we're insulin resistant. So that's a whole nother side discussion. But as estrogen declines, we become more insulin resistant. Mm-hmm. And so our health habits that we did at 30 now don't work as well at 40. So what I hear in your story is you've been throwing fasting at your body throughout your whole 40s and even earlier. Mm-hmm. So you've been helping estrogen out, and by making yourself insulin sensitive. So you are maximizing estrogen's production. You are most likely, with the fasting you're doing, there's a lot of great gut repair. So when you've got those tools combined, then you have been adapting in the most appropriate way to that decline of estrogen that most women are not finding. So hats off. I absolutely agree that what you did is profound and most likely made a huge difference in your hormones. Now, the second part of that is, were you not fasting before your cycle? Did you know that trick? Because you've been watching me for a while, so you maybe have known it for a few years.
No, I travel a lot, different time zones across the world. So obviously my fasting does change, because I used to tell people, oh gosh, no, I have what's called the 11-7 rule. What I would eat from 11 to 7, and I would sleep from 11 to 7. And the older I get, the sooner I eat. I'm becoming a grandma, but it has varied, but I have never synced it with my cycle, or, done longer or shorter. It's just always been right around 8 hours a day for, that I've eaten my eating window for a good 25 years.
Yeah. I mean, it's working for you. If it's working for you, you have regular cycles, you're mentally and physically where you want to be, keep doing it. In Fast Like a Girl, what we do is show how to cycle. I show how to cycle the longer fast and the shorter fast according to your cycle. So when that comes out, I'd be curious how that works for you. You really look at the front half of your cycle. How do you go into some of these longer fasts? And then the back half of your cycle, how do we not fast as much? Because now you're really mimicking what your ancestors, how the female body evolved into where we're at right now in this day and age.
Which I find I'm very, very curious about, but I don't want to just kind of, I've always wanted to have kind of a regimen for that. And so I will be very interested, and I promise you, I will give that a try. Because I do know, and I am learning that when fasting was first really talked about, it was pretty much a steady state fasting. And now, they're really finding the science that it is better to switch that up a little bit. And so I'm a lot less, if I eat at 9 o'clock instead of 10 o'clock, big deal. Or if I eat a little bit later on this day, big deal. So I'm very curious to try it to see if it even does help this change in life, make it a little more, seamless, that I don't get the hot flashes and that the dryness that I hear a lot about and all that stuff starts to happen, that I can help really mitigate that through taking this fasting to the next level.
Yeah. You're on the perfect progression, because you read the menopause reset, and the menopause reset was really about how do we get women at 40 to understand that there's a lifestyle change that should happen. And then out of that, so many women were like enamored with the fasting that they were like, okay, let's just take, fasting and let's break that down. So Fast Like a Girl is all about that. So it'll take you to the next level, but whatever you're doing is working. So keep it up.
Yeah, well, thank you. When does the book come out? Do you have I know you said during the holidays.
December 27th, it'll come out. It's open. It's ready for pre-order now. We'd love for people to pre-order it. It's getting so much momentum. A lot of Leanne Rimes, I've been working with her, and she wrote the foreword. And we've got a lot of other powerful women. Danica Patrick's been following a lot of my fasting tools. So
that podcast was really good, by the way.
Yeah, so it's been fun. The number of women, especially the women that are turning 40, like, to me, Danica and Leanne are so fun, because I got to work with both of them while they were right at the point they were turning 40, which is so cool. So it's just, it's just a fun project that, to me, this book is going to help so many women. But it also has so many women that are applying the principles already, that are just excited about it for the world. So
yeah, this book is very much needed, very, very, very much needed in my social media following, and all of the accountability groups that I do. That has to be number one. What breaks your fast is always a common question, and number two is, I'm a woman and I've been told that I shouldn't fast. So this book is so needed. Would you do me a favor and share with the audience all the areas, all the places that they can find you, and again, where they can find your book to pre-order?
Yeah, I'm everywhere. So I would say, if you want to pre-order the book, go to fastlikeagirl.com. We have, for us, again, this is like a celebration. So we've got a lot of fun giveaways, and we've got some cool webinars we're putting together for people who pre-order. So the fun has just begun. So you can go to fastlikeagirl.com. If you can go to YouTube, that's like my passion. I put 2 new videos out every week. Instagram, I'm there a lot. We have a free fasting group in Facebook called the Resetter Collaborative. We have our academy if you need some more attention. And if you forget all that, just go to drmindypelz.com, and everything is on my webpage.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
This has been a Christmas present to me. And I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with my audience, and more importantly, speaking to me, because I am an absolute huge fan. It was, to me, when I found you, I can't even describe, because, you have, first you find out that this lifestyle that you have is actually a real thing. And there are people behind it that actually advocate for it, because here I was in the fitness industry, being told to eat the 6 small meals a day and to eat right when I woke up to stoke my metabolism. And I wasn't doing that. And I felt like a fraud, because here I was, probably the leanest and most in shape group exercise instructor in the area, but yet I was doing everything wrong. So when I found you, it was a breath of fresh air. And not only did I get reassurance, but I got educated beyond my wildest dreams to be able to also help other women. So the things that you're doing, not only help the people that you touch, but help the people that you touch. They also touch other women and are able to help them as well. So I just wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being such an advocate for this way of life, because it has changed my life. It's changed a lot of people's lives. And I thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Melissa. And this, to me, the 2 biggest hurdles to getting healthy are time and money.
Mm-hmm.
And fasting blows both of those away. Like, you don't need time and you don't need money. So once I identified that and really figured out what women needed to do, I started to see that we could literally change chronic disease for women once they understand this tool. So when I hear you say what you just said, like, that warms my heart, because you're taking the teaching and then you're amplifying it. And that's what we need to do. As women, we need to collaborate. We got to get out of our competitive modes. We need to come together. We need to tell our stories of fasting and hormones and healing. And tools like this are free. and we can get off of medications. We can live in the body we want to live in. We can finally do what we want to do with our health. And it's such a simple tool. So just appreciate you.
Thank you. I lied. One more question. Tell me that you've reached your 1 million women. You have to.
You know what? I think I have.
I think you have.
Because we get 1.5 million views every month on YouTube, and 80% of our following is women. So I finally, if you see my most current ones, I'm like, I think we hit it. Yeah. I wanted to create some, could we have a thermometer? I want to try to get 1 million people on one day. So we created International Fasting Day. But yeah. So we're now that we appear to have hit it, we're going to keep going.
Good. Yeah, I think you need to put a 0 behind that and say 10 million, which you're probably close to that as well. But thank you so much for spending your afternoon with me. And everybody that's listening, as always, MADE stands for making a difference every day. I want you to wake up feeling prepared, and I want you to go to bed feeling proud. Have a great day. Wow, we've reached the end. But before I leave you, I'd love to hear from you. After all, it's not every day that someone reaches out and asks for your opinion. And to me, your opinion does matter. So please share this episode with anyone that you think needs to hear this message. And remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. My name is Melissa McAllister. And until next time, thank you for being your own health advocate.